look at is the U1 designation. Every unit that we're working on is going to be right here underneath the home page. When you click on the unit, it will take you to the week. So Unit 1, Week 1, we're talking about the Reformation. The objectives: students and teacher will review class norms. We want to look at what was Martin Luther's role in the Church Reformation, and what was the overall impact on society with the religious changes in Switzerland, England, and within the Catholic Church. So what we're essentially looking at is the religious changes that take place in Western Europe right around the time of the Renaissance in the 16th and even a little bit into the 17th century. So essentially, first semester we looked at building civilizations. Second semester we're going to look at changing those civilizations. If I click on this, it's going to do two things. It's going to automatically open up the first item, the 95 Thesis. This is what we're going to be working with, so we'll come back to this. It's also going to give me the learning module. Learning modules are these ideas that you can have a table of contents over here on the left, and then what's going on right here. If there's ever a launch error, you can click to launch right here. The next thing that we're going to look at is we're going to look at Luther's bio. So you click on that, and it will take you to the bio. There's a short video here. We're going to go ahead and pause that whenever it comes up. And we'll just close, let's see, pause that. All right. If for further reading, if you want to look at the synopsis here, early life, spiritual anguish and enlightenment, you're welcome to do any of that. Whenever you continue to scroll down, you see rejection of the Roman Catholic Church, where Luther starts to reject the church, and then the part where he gets excommunicated. Again, excommunication is being kicked out of the church and given a sentence to be sent into purgatory or hell. Here is later years, and then the most important thing, the thing that especially 7th hour needs to look at, is the legacy of Martin Luther. And we'll read this together in class, but the legacy of Martin Luther is one of the most influential and controversial figures in the Reformation movement. This obviously is a claim by our author on bio.com. And his actions fractured the Roman Catholic Church into new sects of Christianity and set in motion reform within the church. A prominent theologian, his desire for people to feel closer to God led him to translate the Bible into the language of the people, radically changing the relationship between church leaders and their followers. Essentially, what Martin Luther tried to do was get rid of the sale of indulgences, as we talked about in our primary source document. So in doing so, he kind of split up the church and sent people running in all kinds of different directions, which we'll go ahead and look at on Thursday of this week. So there's some further reading. Here's the video on his bio if you want to come watch that. Obviously, we've opened a new tab here. We're back on our learning module for week 1. Here is the Diet of Worms clip. I'd like for you to note, pause here, on the clip for the Diet of Worms. We're going to watch this in class, and it needs to begin at 5:15 to its conclusion. Make sure to keep in mind the weight of the words of Luther. If he does not recant or go back on his beliefs and writings, he will be excommunicated or kicked out of society. This could also lead to a death sentence. Remember, green denotes items for 7th hour. So anything that's in green is a 7th hour only type of item. But the other thing that needs to be said about excommunication is that, again, it's almost a certain sentence into hell according to the people of that time, and that had been the teaching for well over 100 years. So it's a very, very scary thing, and it is very, 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 very bad, to emphasize the problems that occur there. So we'll go ahead and close this out. We'll close this out, and we'll get down to the meat of what's happening today. We're closing in on 7 minutes. I don't want to go much longer than that. What I'm going to have you guys do is I'm going to have you go through this together. So out of love and concern for the truth, these are the writings of Martin Luther, by the way, and with the object of eliciting it, the following heads will be the subject of a public discussion at Wittenberg under the presidency of the Reverend Father Martin Luther, Augustinian, Master of Arts and Sacred Theology, and duly appointed lecturer on these subjects in that place. He requests that whoever cannot be present personally to debate the matter orally will do so in absence and in writing. Essentially what he's done is set up a bell ringer. He's put up a bunch of questions and ideas and claims and said, hey, let's talk about this. The creepy thing about this is that he puts it up on the Wittenberg church doors on the eve of All Saints' Day, which is October 31st. You may know this now as Halloween. What I would like for you to do is go through and talk about what is actually happening here. What is the introduction or the grabber? Why is Martin Luther doing these things? The next thing that I would like for you to talk about is if we go back to Blackboard and we click on this, and obviously it kicks that tab open. I need to get that fixed. But what we want to do here is go to the calendar. And on the calendar for Wednesday, it's going to tell us exactly what we need to be doing. Students will break up into groups of 3, choose one of Luther's theses, interpret and report on the events that kick off the revolution. So 21, 27, 32, 35, 36, 37, 43, 45, 86, and 95 are all options for you. We're going to do number 13 together. And if you notice, the agenda here is cut off. So what you'll need to do is click on Agenda, go to Wednesday, and this allows us to scroll. We're going to have an artist that's going to create a drawing, song, or interpretive dance to show Luther's actions. We're going to have a reporter, which will write an account of what was taking place in Wittenberg, and we're going to have a producer, which helps organize newscast and define keywords of the thesis. What is the main concern of the proposed discussion? What happens to the paper once posted, and what is the result of this action? So what you're going to do then is you're going to talk about Luther. You're going to talk about what he does. Feel free to take a stance on this. It is your newscast, and you guys are responsible for it. So let's go through an example from the thesis. 13. Death puts an end to all the claims of the church. Even the dying are already dead to the canon laws and are no longer bound by them. So essentially what we want to do as a group is translate this. So what the heck is Luther saying in present day English? And it's death. So when a person dies, the church doesn't really have any control over them anymore, because the church is a worldly entity. It's not a godly entity or spiritual entity in Christianity. So what they're saying then is that the claims of that are done. Even the dying are already dead to the canon laws. So Luther is renouncing this idea that people who are kind of at the end of their days are able to be saved by the laws of the church. The canon laws are the laws of the church and the papal laws. And they are no longer bound by them. So essentially, they don't have to follow the laws of the church. And again, we talked about them being the most powerful. So in claim number 13, Luther is speaking out against the idea that people could buy indulgences or be sold indulgences to save their soul after they are dead. Sometime in Luther's time, in order to raise money for the St. Pete's Basilica, people were, in fact, getting indulgences and then having them sold in exchange for this promise that their dead family members or dying family members were able to be removed from purgatory or hell by the purchasing of these indulgences. So that becomes a serious problem for Luther, and he wants to debate this. The issue with the thesis, though, is that it most certainly gets copied on the printing press, and then several copies of it get sent out, which becomes pretty popular among the German princes. The nice thing for them, whether they believe in Luther's ideas or Catholicism, is that they could use Luther's ideas to get out of taxes to the church. And when you think about our history, and as we continue to work through this, one of the things I want you to keep in mind is that it is in fact all about the Benjamins. So again, we'll go back to Blackboard. On our calendar, students will break up into groups of 3, choose one of Luther's theses, interpret and report the events that kick off the revolution. So 21, 27, 32, 35, 36, 37, 43, 45, 86, and 95. These are your choices. And in 7th hour and all other hours, we'll try and divide these up so that we can be very, very effective with our time.